What's up, everybody? This is Under the Arc Sports. I'm Eric.
And I'm David.
And today we're going to preview Missouri's game against the Florida Gators. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and find us on Facebook and Instagram. So Mizzou is coming off their big win against Kentucky, where really they beat the Wildcats at their own game. And they might take a similar approach going against the Florida Gators. We'll get into that in just a second, but the big elephant in the room here is COVID. Florida has had 31 football players test positive for COVID this month. Their past two games have been postponed. They haven't played a football game since October 10th, and not only have they not played, but their players have been in quarantine, so they really haven't practiced much. And their return to practice is a gradual process. So they may not even have a full week of practice getting ready for Missouri. And, David, it's a mess for Florida trying to get back to football.
And one thing to mention, as of Tuesday, they had 6 more players test positive as well.
Exactly. So with contact tracing, we don't know who's going to be there, who's not going to be there. For the purposes of this video, everything that we're going to say and our predictions, we're assuming Florida has all their starters available. You know, everything goes out the window if Kyle Trask is out, their quarterback. Now, let's talk about Trask and the Florida offense. It all begins with Trask. He is the best quarterback in the SEC East, and he might be the best quarterback in the entire conference. Mac Jones has something to say about that, but he's in the conversation, Trask is. In 3 games, he's got 14 touchdown passes, only 1 interception, and he's got 996 yards passing. Now, half of his touchdown passes, 7 of them, have been to his tight end, Kyle Pitts. In 3 games, Pitts has 17 catches, 274 yards. So when Trask is throwing the football, look for Pitts to be the biggest threat.
Also, along the lines of Florida's offense, they run the ball about 122 yards a game. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but they don't have to run much because of how well Trask passes. They're averaging about 4.8 yards per carry, which is still quite impressive for a rushing attack.
Yeah, and the pure numbers aren't that impressive. 122 yards a game isn't bad, but it's not going to really catch your eye. But Florida throws the ball 58% of the time.
And that rushing keeps the teams honest and forces them to look inside, because if they give up 5 yards of rush, I mean, what's to stop Florida from changing their attack to running game?
Exactly. Now,
Mizzou's defense, one of the question marks I still have about it is how well their secondary can perform. They've given up quite a lot of yards to Alabama and LSU. They only gave up something like 64 yards to Kentucky, but Kentucky only throws the ball like 6 times in a game. So
Kentucky completed 4 passes against Missouri.
Yeah, I consider that a wash because they're not a passing team. So the key to this game will be how well our secondary can match up with Florida. And then the other focal point would be how well our defensive line can get pressure on Tass. Because if they can't get any pressure, then Tass can stand back there all game and just pick us apart. Kind of like LSU did and Alabama did.
Yeah, and with Kyle Trask, he's not the biggest running threat. So what that means for the defensive ends is when you have a 3rd and long situation where they can pin their ears back and go, they can really get after him, because while you never want to give up contain as a defensive end, he's not as big of a threat on the outside running the football as some other quarterbacks are, right? So Trajan Jeffcoat, he can be a little more aggressive getting after Trask.
Now, one of the things that might help would be if we can stop the run, which would put a lot of pressure on our D-line to maintain their gaps and keep an eye out for the handoffs when they do happen. Offensively, I think Mizzou has a great chance to pretty much play however they want. Honestly, I could see them doing what they did against Kentucky, taking the ball and running it down Florida's throat, because Florida does tend to give up over 150 yards rushing a game. So on that aspect, they could easily control the clock. At the same time, Florida tends to give up a lot of passing yards too, so Mizzou should be able to open up their passing game and throw downfield more. I know they didn't do it against Kentucky, but that was by design because Kentucky's secondary was so good. So yeah. Drinkwitz has plenty of options with what he wants to do offensively. Now,
there was a lot of talk after the Kentucky game about how Coach Drink was able to adapt the offense to, based on the other team in front of him. And it's interesting because, like you just said, Florida's giving up 495 yards of offense per game. That means you got options. So between Drinkwitz going from Basilak throwing for 406 yards against LSU to running the ball a million times against Kentucky, Florida is going to have a tough time game planning for this because it's all about what Drink thinks the Florida defense is weakest at and exploiting that, and Florida's going to have to guess.
Well, and there's one other key to this, which goes back to COVID. They've been sitting in quarantine for 14 days. How conditioned are these guys? How long are they going to last? Because they haven't been continuing their workouts. So I could see them wear down by the third quarter and Mizzou have their way with them.
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see how this game plays out, especially with what Drink wants to do with the team offensively.
Yeah, and we talk about ball control and time of possession. I think it'll be harder for Missouri to hold the ball as long as they did against Kentucky because, Kentucky's defense is better than Florida's, right? For all of the 37 carries that Larry Roundtree had against Kentucky, he had 126 yards, which is a good number, but it's not an impressive average given 37 carries, right? Well, Florida's rush defense is not as good. Larry Roundtree did not bust any major long runs against Kentucky. He's more likely to do it against Florida. It might be harder for Missouri to control the ball for 40 minutes because Roundtree busts 165 yards to the end zone. They may not be able to help but score quicker.
Not to mention, if you open up the top of the passing game by running play action or something like that, you could have an easy shot downfield.
Exactly. And that's going to – I think Coach Drink knows that Basilak's going to have to air it out a little bit more because against Kentucky, you didn't have to respect their offense, so you could be more conservative. You can't do that against Florida. Even if Missouri's defense brings its A game, Florida's still going to score some touchdowns, right? So, prediction time. If this were any of Missouri's last 4 games, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State, or Vanderbilt, I'd be picking Missouri. I want to pick Missouri in this game. They look like a team that's turned the corner. But Kyle Trask against this Missouri defense, particularly in the secondary, I can't do it. I got to see them do it before I can pick them to do it. Because of that, I'm going to pick Florida 33-26, and I'll keep my streak of not picking Missouri all season alive.
I'll keep the similar thought patterns as you. I need to see more out of our secondary. I also just want to see consistency overall in our defense and a continuation of improvement on the defense as well as offense. The game's on the road, so I actually have Florida winning 38-35. I think it's going to be a real close game, and I think Mizzou really does have a good shot at taking this win. As usual, one of the keys is not turning the ball over. If they can do that, I think there is a good chance that we could pull off a victory. However, I am still, until they prove it to me, I'm still giving Florida the victory with 38-35. Anyway, this is Under the Arch Sports. Thank you again for watching. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out our Facebook page and Instagram page.
See y'all next time.